All right, what's up, everyone? It is John from Zonguru here in Los Angeles, and welcome to another episode of Amazon Expert Hotseat. This is where we interview experts to really help educate you on your Amazon business and hopefully inspire you to take some action. Today we have Kaneshiro from SellerSnap. How are you doing, Ian?
I am doing well, John. Thanks for having me here, and I'm excited to be on the hot seat today.
Yeah, man, it's cool to have you, and I'm super interested in diving into this subject because I know less about it. Anyway, so we'll do a little bit of an intro in a second, but yeah, Ian's over in Tel Aviv, but he grew up in Los Angeles, so we have a good connection there. Seller Snap, and I think what would be really good about this hot seat is to dive into this whole area of repricing, and literally some of the ideas and thoughts you have around repricing and ultimately winning that buy box. Now, a lot of the people listening right now will just be like, well, okay, well, what are we really talking about? Because I don't compete necessarily for the buy box. And it's true, right? A lot of our customers are private label sellers. They have their own UPC for their product, and they're not necessarily competing for the buy box. There are occasions where obviously that does happen, but in this particular case of competing for the buy box and obviously trying to price yourself, competitively versus your competitors, it's more about reselling, retail arbitrage, which is a lot of the time where our audience starts, and they start there, they get a lot of cash flow, and then they start some of their own UPC brands. So I'm really interested to dive into that, and in particular talk a little bit about some of the technologies and insights and thoughts around repricing, because even that is important for us as private label sellers. Is we might not be selling exactly the same product, but we're competing in the same category. So how can you use pricing intelligence to make sure that you're priced correctly? You can drive up your price when you should be, drive it down when you shouldn't. These are all thoughts going through my head. So I'm going to stop talking for a second, and let's talk a little bit about SellerSnap and most importantly, this whole idea of repricing and the theory and the strategy behind it.
Sure, absolutely. And so, when we're talking about repricing, it's important to talk about why is it important. And because, one of the things as far as, 3P or third party sellers go, something like 60 or 70% of all product sales are from third party sellers. And so that's, there's really a lot of revenue that's driven for both Amazon and these 3P sellers. And so when we're talking about the buy box, we know that the majority of sales, whether it is a private label item or an item that is being resold, is still sold through the buy box. And for anyone who might be new or doesn't understand what the buy box is, when we're going to that listings page on the right side of the screen, we have that button that says add to cart or buy now. And when you click on that, that price that you're buying from or you're adding to the cart is taken from a third-party seller's inventory, whether it's an FBA item or fulfilled by Amazon, or an FBM item, which is fulfilled by merchant. And so that buy box algorithm is an Amazon trade secret. We can make some assumptions on it, but at the end of the day, it's a black box. But what we do know is that algorithm is focused on customer experience, and one of the main points of customer experience is price. So whether you are a reseller or you're selling private label, price is a huge factor to the buy box, because even as a private label seller, we do see a lot of suppressed buy boxes when that price gets too high, and you end up seeing on the listings page, what did it say, like view available from these sellers. Right. And so that's something that we have to take into account when we're repricing both resellable items and our private label.
I just want to jump in there for a second because that's super interesting, right? Is on the reseller side, the buy box competition is absolutely focused around price and there's other pieces in that black box, probably listing health, reviews, whatever goes into that algorithm, and you've got to be very conscious of that and obviously super careful on your pricing, up or down, right? To make sure that you can get that buy box. Whereas on the private label side, you do find sometimes, and you might lose the buy box, but typically you're losing the buy box because you have your own UPC. and maybe there's products that are similar, but if you have to do quite a lot of things wrong for Amazon to then just go, hey, you know what, like, even though this product is here, we're going to offer you something similar because these guys are either suppressed or they've done something pretty bad or have a bad listing health or something. So, that's where you got to go in and fix it. But you can, as a private label seller, lose your own buy box if you get a few things wrong or Amazon does something. So, it's totally a valid point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, really at the end of the day, SellerSnap is geared towards, again, resellers, arbitrageurs, because of our game theory inspired approach of getting the buy box at the highest possible price while avoiding price wars. And so just the gist of it is that we use all the data that we pull from Amazon and that Amazon makes available to us in order to understand the decisions that our customers make based on the decisions that we make. And then from there, what we can do is we'll try to always raise the price in order to maximize profit and profit margin. Private label, though, is a bit of a different animal because we are not competing for the buy box in the same way because I already own the buy box. And one common question that, we, in the early days of SellerSnap is that we used to ask sellers is, do you have competition? Right? And for us, our question really is, do you have competition for the buy box? And then a lot of the times what we found is private label sellers would say, yes, of course I have competition. And then we would go and we'd look at listings and we say, there's nobody here. And that was one of the mistakes that I made really early on in my time in the repricing space, was that assumption. And understanding that there is competition on my listings, even though it's not the same exact item, is something that's super, super relevant for sellers that, either sell reselling items or private label. And a lot of sellers are kind of in the middle and will do a little bit of both. And so just making that distinction is very, very important.
Yeah. And so I think you nailed that in whether you're private label or you're a reseller, do you have competition? Yes. One, obviously, as a reseller, you're competing for the sale of exactly the same product, same UPC, same brand, and that's much more price competitive. But on the private label side, you're competing for that keyword for other products that are very similar to you. So pricing for a private label seller is absolutely just as important as a reseller. Understanding what is the ultimate price that you should be charging so that you can get the sale, but most importantly, make your most revenue. Like that's critical. So, if there's a way, if you can help explain how your repricing technology could help private label sellers, I think that's a really interesting thing to unpack.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that we can speak about when we're talking about repricing for private label. The first one is based on competition, and the second one is based on my turnover rate or my velocity. And so velocity when we're talking about velocity in terms of repricing, that is the holy grail of repricing, because that is trying to find that nexus point of that highest point that I can sell my item for while selling as many items as possible. And so that's something that SellerSnap is working on. We have a repricing method that's in beta right now. We have a few customers testing it out, giving us feedback constantly, and we're looking on more and more customers to jump in, kind of early on and get feedback for that. And so the idea is that as a seller, I can say in a 7-day period, I want to sell at least this many items, or in a 7-day period, I need to sell at least, Y, right? So it's either I need to sell at least X or I need to sell at least Y, or maximum of Y. And so then at this point, we have objectives, and the repricer can move up and down in order to hit those goals. And so velocity repricing, again, is something that, I really believe that we're moving more and more towards in terms of repricing for private label and brands. And I expect SellerSnap and other companies in the market to be having more and more offerings revolving around that, because historically repricing has been around, again, the wholesale and the arbitrage and the reselling market. The second way,
go ahead, keep going.
I was just going to say the second way that we see repricing used today is we have a method that's called follow multiple related ASINs. So if I have, I don't know, I'm looking at a pen right here. If I have a 5-pack of black pens, I might want to reprice my item based on my other competitive listings. So anybody else that I might be competing with in the market. But the complicated part is understanding who are my actual competitors. Because if I have a 5-pack of black pens, I have a ton of large brands out there. I have like the Bics of the world that I have to go and compete against. They have more dynamic pricing, but I also have my other private label sellers out there who, at this moment, their pricing is less dynamic. But there's still factors that I need to take into account. And that doesn't even take into account looking at blue and red and purple pens as well. And so understanding like who is my real competition and attaching myself to their price so I can stay competitive in that market is something that we're seeing more and more customers moving towards.
Yeah, really, really interesting. There's a lot of parallels there. And I think from our side, we have a tool called Product Pulse, right, which ultimately tracks all of the events that can happen to your listing, right? Price changes, size changes, suppressions, review counts, all those kind of things. But when we built that, the other part of it that I wanted to make sure we encapsulated was, if something's happening to my sales up or down, it's either something that's happened to my listing or something that my competitors are doing. So I wanted intelligence from my competitors so we can track our competitors as well. Are they changing their price, all that kind of stuff? And obviously, for us at the moment, it's a manual process where like, oh, my main competitors dropped their price. Do I need to go in and drop my price? Or they just went out of stock. Can I go in and push my price up? So you can have that intelligence to go in and do those. Whereas I'm assuming with this tool, however it gets plugged in, the algorithm can probably pick up on those things and then suggest or increase or test the price accordingly and just do that automatically for you, which is super awesome.
Yeah, that actually brings up a really interesting use case that I had with a customer just a few weeks ago. And what happened is that he was repricing. He wasn't repricing the item at this time, and he was looking at his sales, and his sales absolutely flatlined, and he couldn't figure out why. And then a few weeks in, he realized that it was because one of his main competitor dropped the price by like 25 or 30%, something like that. And generally, I was talking to him and he was telling me, he's like, look, I usually check it on like a bi-weekly basis or at the very least once a week, but business got away from me. I was working on other aspects of my business and it just didn't happen. And he found it too late. So that opportunity cost was already gone. And so the reason why he came to us and why we started working with him was that he used us as a backstop, you could say, to say, all right, if my competitor drops price, leaves a listing, or any other of these potential use cases, make a certain decision. So I do not have to track what my competitor is doing on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, but I'll let the rules and the automation run it for me. That way, I feel comfortable going and working on other parts of my business, because we know that running an Amazon business is so much more than just following your product and your competitors' products. We have the sourcing, we have the inventory aspect, we have the advertising aspect, and a lot of companies out there are 1-2 people out of their garage, and we need to and when we're in these scenarios and we're wearing so many different hats, automation is such a key part to scaling.
Yeah, super cool, man. And I was interested, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but it was interesting for me to hear from you around sales velocity and obviously trying to get the algorithm to increase the sales velocity as much as possible at the maximum price. And what that really boils down to as well, which is something that we always talk about, is conversion rate. So does that factor into the algorithm in terms of getting intelligence on not only the conversion rate of your product, but also potentially of the niche or that competitive space? Is that something that you guys look at?
So at the moment, it is not. So right now, we are there. When we're talking about repricing, we have to take factors that number one, that we can control, and which is pricing. And then we can make decisions based on, factors such as, velocity, sell-through rate, conversion. But taking into account data points in terms of our competitors is something that's very difficult.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because,
that's why I asked, because I'm like, it's the holy grail.
Yeah, it is the holy grail, and if and when a company figures it out, it's going to be something that it's going to be game changing. But at the end of the day, companies like Seller Snap are reliant on that data from Amazon as a third party seller, getting that developer access and using that data that we can have access to the best of our abilities.
Gotcha. Great. Yeah, and that was awesome. So how can our audience get in touch with you guys, and more importantly, start testing your tool? And is that beta available, or is it an apply only kind of scenario? What's the deal there?
Yeah, so sellers can always get to us through our website. Fill out a form. One of our sales reps will reach out, or you can reach out to me directly at ian@sellersnap.io. And that's IAN at sellersnap.io. In terms of the beta program, right now it is available to basically anybody who wants it. I know that for every seller, some sellers are really excited about being a part of something new and giving feedback and working with a company like us who, our intention is to really listen and take that feedback constructively in order to create the best possible program. And so for those sellers, I encourage you, reach out to me. You can, reach out to me directly and get set up, because there is a bit of early bird pricing because it's not a full scale rollout yet. And it's a really great opportunity to kind of be on the ground floor of something cool, something innovative, and something that I know is going to help, third party sellers and brands, push their revenue and their bottom line forward as they scale.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm excited, and I'm sure we'll have some follow-ups on this. I'm going to definitely jump in and look at the demo on that. It's definitely a world I haven't thought as much about from a repricing perspective, just because it's not as applicable. But certainly after this conversation, I can see how it helps a bunch. So thanks for that, and thanks for teaching all of our audience. And we will definitely touch base in the future.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to working with you and anybody else who might need some a little automation for their lives.
All right, man. Catch you later.
All right, thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.